Welcome everyone to this week's Take Charge of Your Life discussion. Our focus is self-mastery and living an abundant life while we live into our fullest potential. I'm Roberta. I'm the owner of Wake Up to Life Wellness, and I'm a holistic health practitioner doing quantum nutrition testing and a certified elite mentorship trainer. My passion is to help people get out of the struggle and actually live their life, and to just, to level up to that place where they just feel very empowered and fulfilled, and they feel proud of, the life that they're creating and the life that they're going to leave as a legacy. And this is my co-host, Tish.
I'm Tish Taylor from Growth Centric Living. I am also an elite mentorship trainer certified under Mr. Peter Sage, Roberta and I's mentor, which we'll talk about in a second. And I help people develop their mindset and transform so you can really live the life to your true potential.
Yes, as Tish mentioned, we're trainers for the Elite Mentorship Forum, which is Peter Sage's worldwide program. And I'll introduce him. He's a globally recognized human behavior expert. He's an author, a motivational speaker. He's really a tremendous human behavior specialist that really focuses on that self-mastery so that we are not only hearing what to do, but we're embodying it and empowering ourselves and others to live at a much higher level in life and a much more enjoyable, maybe abundant life, if you will. He's a best-selling author, like I said, with over 150,000 copies in multiple languages. And his contribution to the growth industry is considered the gold standard in personal transformation. And having, done years of personal growth and recovery work, I can say that his work is, incredibly high level and just encompasses so much and propels us forward so much faster than the work I've done over the past decades. His mission really is to provide individuals with mindset and tools necessary for personal growth and success. And like I said, empowering us to achieve our highest potential. So we're really honored to be working under his, programs. So for the structure of this call, we have a framework called Mind, Body, and Soul Transformation. So we're going to talk about living empowered with the mind concept, living healthy with the body and the physical concept, and then also living free, which is the soul realm. And so today, Tish is going to introduce us to one of Peter's 60-second videos and our topic for today.
This week, we are diving into what would be Module 9 if you were in our Elite Mentorship Forum program. And it's an introduction to what we call archetypes, which is a fancy word for the personalities that sort of live within us. Science has decided that there are essentially 4 voices within our head. Some will be more dominant than others. But this is an introduction to kind of those and Peter's, and we're going to introduce it today and then kind of extend our series there. So please stay tuned to our discussions as we kind of get more specific after this. I will bring up our video and we'll get right to it.
Okay, hands up. How many of you have voices in your head? Different personalities, different kinds of levels of conversation. And sometimes they're supportive, sometimes they're arguing, sometimes there's conflict, sometimes you know exactly what to do, and other times you're confused. What's going on between our ears all of that time? Well, there are many models of trying to understand psychology, dynamic psychotherapy, Gestalt, humanistic therapy, NLP. But let's make it simple so that we can actually get benefit. Carl Jung famously created a model that he called the archetypes of the human personality. And he essentially put into 4 groups, 4 personalities, the distinct levels of different expressions of who we are. And those 4 archetypes are the sovereign, the lover, the magician, and the warrior. And on the next few videos, I'm going to be going into each one in detail. See if you can spot which one you are.
This is such an exciting topic, and I can so relate to the voices in the head. I mean, I've spent years calming those voices in my head. They're pretty, depending on the level of trauma we have, and really, kind of like it's a post-traumatic stress response where the mind is in hypervigilant, protection mode all the time and scanning and trying to figure things out, right? So that we stay safe. And so I love this archetypal deep dive because it just made sense. And like Peter said, it's a simple way to align with this and really make sense of it. And so like Carl Jung that he mentioned, who created the concept of the 4 archetypes, is a Swiss psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, who founded the School of Analytical Psychology. He is no longer with us, but he has there's tremendous information and teachings about him on YouTube. And I would encourage people to reach out because it's quite fascinating. He really makes sense of a lot of our lives, really. So like he said, the mind hosts multiple archetypes, which is basically patterns of thinking, behavior, actions, and motivation. So those are the voices in our head and basically how we show up with the different archetypal personalities, if you will. So like I said, we're acting out of our survival instincts by nature, and we are fulfilling a very specific archetypal leaning, or like we have an innate dominant archetype. So we are responding by design, by the way we were created, really. And we all have different expressions. And so if there's people in your life that drive you crazy and you just can't figure out why they don't see things your way, there's a very understandable, solution to that, or a way to make sense of that. And so when I think of the archetypal leaning in my life, I'm what we call the lover. So I'm very concerned about people's emotions and creating safe space, not getting people upset, trying to take care of and nurture people. And so we're attracted, though, to our opposites. So it is true, opposites attract. And that's why it's very difficult to have a relationship, because the person I'm attracted to would be the warrior. They're opposite on a diagram that was created to define this concept. And they're very assertive, and they're not emotional, and they're about getting stuff done. They're on a mission. They don't have time to sit with emotions and, get into that vulnerable space, because they have things to do that need their attention. And they were, accredited with protecting the village back in the day, and they had to be on alert. They had to be the warrior in charge to make sure everybody else was safe. And if they became vulnerable, then they could be overtaken, and so could the village. So when we think about that, so I'm drawn to someone who is just the exact opposite of who I am. And that can even be in business or in other relationships, not just personal ones. So it really is worth our curiosity and this deep dive into this, and really in a fun way understand this, because it just changes our whole persona and our perception of, how people show up. So it makes more sense.
It really is empowering. And this is why we're kind of introducing this in our mindset piece, is that not only do I better understand myself by understanding these archetypes and the personalities that, we all have within us, but one normally dominating our behavior up until this point, until we become more conscious and sort of aware of it, but also understanding the other people around us that we care about, like Roberta is saying about why maybe there is a disconnect sometimes in our behavior and not understanding other people. This just opens up in our mindset a way better understanding, really. That's the best word, and awareness of how people function on a personality level and why they might do some of the things that they do. So this is another game changer concept brought to us by Peter.
Yeah. And I guess one of the archetypes that I wanted to mention specifically was the sovereign archetype, who's in charge of kind of more in the mindset. They're more mind focused. They're more outer world. They're not so much in the inner world. They are wondering, they're making sure that projects get done, that people, situations get managed. They're in charge. And if they're leading in a balanced way, they're people that we want to follow. But that is their gift to the world, is that they want to make sure the roads get built and the bridges are structured right, and that peoples and systems work correctly in the world so that we can all have a better world. And so they're definitely in their mind a lot, because that's just, their design. And so just understanding that, it just makes it, I used to think of people like that were kind of bossy, and they're kind of telling me what to do, and, they're in charge, and realizing that that's the way they were designed, and know that many times their intentions are good. They're just so focused on that outcome that they tend to seem a little bossy and, in charge. But once we understand them, we can see them from a different angle and not take it personal. So, and our tip for the live empowered in the mind section is to just become curious about the idea that each of us has these 4 unique operating systems. Like each of us has one dominant one. And so everybody around us, or at least 25% in 4 different categories, right, of people, are going to have very distinct, different, opposite ways of being. and just to kind of be curious about this concept that we're going to be introducing and really fleshing out over the next 4 weeks with the archetypal, specifically one each week, and just realize that people aren't necessarily against us. They're not trying to be divisive or, to be right all the time. They're just really operating out of a very strong, innate programming. And so I think it'll be fun as we unpack this, as we start getting that awareness and how you will see people differently after we've gone through these different archetypes.
Excellent. So that leads us to our body, live healthy part of our discussion. And each archetype actually is something that we embody. So you can see it in your physical stance, your dominant sort of personality. It carries its own energy, posture, and physical expression. The body reflects your psyche, especially your dominant one, that maybe if you weren't aware that we do technically have all of these within us. And the more I dive into this, I can kind of see the different personalities of mine kind of coming out each archetype. But specifically in the physical realm, if we're talking about a warrior, as Roberta introduced, this is our doers. So this is a person that's going to stand tall, your chest is open, you have strong breath, you're taking purposeful steps. And you essentially, if we're talking about our physical health, this is somebody who goes to the gym regularly. They have no problem deciding that this is part of my routine. I go, I work out. My physical body and my physical fitness is something that I have no problem hammering out. They're going to the gym and maintaining that gym routine without much issue. Versus the opposite of that, which is the lover, as Roberta said. And this person's a little bit more softer, shoulders, gentle movements. They're nurturing by nature and gesture. So when it comes to their physical fitness or their health, they're going to easily choose to do things for others instead. So, this is somebody, especially in this area, I would say for me personally, the warrior is definitely not a dominant one. Lover is at times, especially when it comes to my family. So, if I had a sick kid, I would prioritize sitting with them, even though, maybe they don't need me to in this moment, but I feel good about sitting with them instead of maybe going to the gym instead. Or we have one of the other ones we haven't talked about is magician. This person looks like they're loosened up, they have spontaneous movement, they're a lot more creative and expressive in their genders. So this type, when we talk about your physical fitness routine, for example, or physical health, when your alarm goes off at 5 a.m., the magician personality is the one that's easily going to justify turning around and, hitting that snooze button one more time. It's okay. I can do it tomorrow. And for me, certainly, as I have gone through my physical health journey, this magician has been very active in me in finding all kinds of reasons why it's okay. I can do it later. If I feel like sleeping instead. They're the prover and the creativity one, which sometimes can work for us and sometimes can also work, against us in especially our physical health when it comes to getting up and doing something that, may be uncomfortable in the moment. Definitely staying nice and warm in my bed is much nicer than, going to the gym, even though I know that feels great afterwards.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. That's a good perspective on the physical part. And I think of depending on what operating system we have determines how we interpret what's coming at us in life. So being a lover, I took things much more sensitively in, whether it was some tragedy or hardship or living in a home that had more anger or whatever. I everything just went deep into my nervous system in a disempowering way, like a painful way. Because I just take on everybody's emotions and I take on, I feel everything to the extreme, which seems like extreme, but, depending on how we take these archetypes and mature them, then we can become that strong, empowered person in that archetype. So there's the balanced version and then there's the more immature, imbalanced version of us. And that's where we differentiate between, how they can be such a gift. And that is our gift to the world, is our mature expression of that. But honestly, if every archetype handles decisions and, requirements, like Tish was saying, going to the gym, or whether it's getting a job done or making sure your kids have what they need, we all have different gifts and leanings, and how we interpret all that can determine our stress level. And if people aren't cooperating, the sovereign can get really upset because people aren't following the plan, and now somebody's going to get hurt. So we all interpret stress and emotional impact in a different way, and that can absolutely affect our physical health over time. And so it's our compelling invitation is to learn about these and really learn to mature and develop those archetypes inside of us so that we're not living on the back foot, so to speak, kind of at the mercy of our survival mechanisms that haven't been developed.
And that sort of leads me right into the tips. Since this is an introduction to these different personalities, we've kind of given you some tidbits today, which is not even close to full picture on each of these personality types, but we want you to start thinking about, and taking notice of your physical stance. Can you relate in your health and routines, etc., to any of these specific archetypal patterns that we've described so far today? So start to, think about what we're saying here and discover what's true for you right now. And so that as we go through the next few weeks, you can decide what's your dominant one, and then ultimately how you can call out what you need when you need it.
Yeah, excellent. So when I think of the soul realm, I see the archetypes as aligning with my true self, right? Because if I have these 4 voices that are kind of fragmented inside of me, I can learn how to embrace them, like Tish said, and call on the one I need once I know what they are, and I can start growing and maturing in them. Instead of reacting, I can, align with my soul and my true authentic self. And maybe I need to be quiet in a situation rather than blurt something out if I'm upset. That would be a way to manage that tendency inside of me. And so I think of, I'm very aware now of people being different. Not everybody has to agree with me. They don't have to be like me. They don't have to agree with my life path or my vision. They have their own movie. I have mine. And so understanding the multiple selves within us, I feel like it's the soul's voice, which unifies all that together. So we don't have like a multiple personality type feeling inside of us. Sometimes we feel like we're a little crazy. I remember one person said they think they had 2 personalities. And I said, well, I just kind of laughed. And I said, we're lucky if we only have 2, because I think most of us are, having a lot going on in our minds. And we've never really, had this information before to really flesh it out and understand it and make peace with it so that we can have a soul aligned and maybe mature and loving life where we're living in flow rather than, trying to frantically figure all this out all the time.
Yeah, I think this helps us in, like you said, really maturing into ourselves in our own lives internally and being able to master these personalities and these voices within to be able to call on the one that we need at certain times, as well as living in, community like we're meant to be, and helping others and understanding others more in what might be their dominant type if they aren't maybe as educated potentially in the different personalities and archetypes that we're speaking about today. That how can we help them if we know what their dominant personality is and what their traits are showing to us, and really understanding both ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah, and that really brings us to the tip for today. I just said, to become the observer of others this week. Consider that they're acting out of an innate survival instinct, which could be extremely different than yours. And so rather than judging them, we could hold some more compassion and understanding. Where they say awareness is everything. And I think just even having this much information to say, I'm going to stop and pause and step back and look at this person and try to think of it a little bit differently, at least to start making that shift and knowing that there's a better way to, analyze people and observe them rather than just getting defensive and polarized if they don't agree, with us. And even if it's someone who's maybe felt very polarizing for a long time, they don't have to change in order for me to see them differently. And so that would be my invitation to have that compassion and understanding for them. And then we'll take this opportunity to, like I said, in the next 4 weeks to really dive into each one individually. And it's just such a fun topic. It's so empowering, and it's just, it's a great joy to be able to share this with you.
This was one of the mind-blowing modules for me, definitely. And just helping me really understand, like I said, me and the people around me. So in summary for our mind, body, and soul aspects of today's discussion, really, this is an introduction, like we kind of keep saying. So we have access, we want you to know, to multiple personality types known as archetypes within us. However, we've been given one, potentially, maybe two, that are given to us as our chief operating systems. So start to notice your patterns, your actions, your thoughts. Get out your journals and all of our tips that we've given today in our discussion, and start writing these observations down. Ask yourself some questions, like, do you have laser focus when it comes to getting things done? Are you more creative? Do you enjoy problem solving and figuring things out? What are some things about your personality that you have noticed that then you can take into our next few discussions and really figure out which one you're aligned with? Do you put others' needs in front of your own more often than not? Enjoy nurturing people and those around you, or conflict avoidant. Those all might be signs of the lover. Do you tend to plan for the greater good? Are you more of a leader? Maybe then you're more of the sovereign archetype. So really just put some thought into it. That's really what our discussion is about today, in introducing this topic and getting you to start noticing and observing with yourself, and if it's easier, then the people around you as well.
Yeah, so, as Tish said, we go over this in depth in a module called Becoming Majestic, and there's exercises and ways for us to really embody this work and understand it at a deep, deep level in the Elite Mentorship Forum. And so it's a powerful framework that will serve us. I mean, I'm also doing another archetypal program that's another high level one that came from Peter Sage's work, the person who created it. And it's just, it consistently shifts my response to life. So there's way less stress in my world. There's just a whole different way of viewing the world and viewing people. So it calms the mind, it calms the nervous system down, and just allows life to be so much more expansive and enjoyable. I have more bandwidth to get things done. So these are the kind of things that we are deep diving into in the Elite Mentorship Forum to really make that permanent shift within us, so that consistently our lives keep improving. And, we were just talking about that earlier, how we feel like there's so much transformation and expansion and shifting going on in our life that it's just like, wow, it's really, there's a lot of change happening, and it's awesome because we're just becoming more our authentic self and showing up with our gifts to present to the world. And it just feels so aligned, and such a thrill. And so we invite you to join us on that journey through the Elite Mentorship Forum.
Yeah, I personally am so grateful for the community that I have developed through taking this program in the last few years. We want to note that it is a lifelong learning process. So when you're ready to commit to this type of transformation and you're tired of playing small and want to start living into your true self, then please reach out to us about our programs, etc. We would love to invite you along with us on this journey that starts when you're ready and then continues for as long as you want it to.
Yeah, and if you know someone who would be supported by this, we ask you to share this video and some of our other discussions, and then like and subscribe. That would help us to share it with more people.
Continue getting our word out there. So to end then, we like to end with a quote. We hope to see you in our next discussion, but in the meantime, know that archetypes are universal and in subtle or extravagant ways, interchangeable. And that quote is by Tanith Lee.
Beautiful. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to our next discussion and, unpacking the archetypes.
See you next time.